Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the day 2 of this URL shortener with Node session. Well, first up, as you already know, there was a significant gap between day 1 and day 2. Apologies for that. I hope you guys are still as excited as you were on day 1. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, random facts. As always, I don't remember your name. That's fine. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, Kavya. If you have friends who are waiting to join, tell them the session has started. Okay, Saurabh, good to have you. Hey, Quick Grow. Hey, Karan. Hey, Zina. Hello, how are you? I'm good. Thank you, Karan. Oh, it's Saurabh. Sorry. Thank you, Saurabh. I'm good. Thank you. Let's wait for a minute. Let other people also join. Then we'll discuss what we are going to do in this session and then we'll actually do it. Sounds good? On day 1, we discussed the basics of Node. We discussed the basics of APIs. We saw how we can install Node, how we can set it up using npm init, and then we created a very basic API. We understood what is a get call, a post call, a delete, and a put call, and we tested it via Postman. Hi, Shubhanjal. Hello. Today we will use all those concepts in building a specific application, that is the URL shortener. That is, we will today also be writing an API. Today also we'll be having a get, post, put, these things, and we will test that through Postman, just like we did on day 1. Today it will be specifically for the URL shortener thing. Good afternoon, Karan. I hope you guys are excited. If you are, tell me in the chat. Yay. Nice name, Nipu. All right, let me share my screen. If for some reason my VS Code is not visible to you guys, do let me know in the chat. If it is, fantastic. Guys, do mark your attendance, do all that stuff that Anna ma'am told you about on day 1, right? Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. All right. So on day 1, we created a basic controller. We created basic routes. This was our API routes. And we had our index.js, right? Okay, thank you. All right, so what I have done now is I have removed the files from day 1, which we coded on day 1. When day 1 key files, index.js, the route, and the controller, I have deleted them because I will create them fresh today. One thing that I want to make very clear before writing any code, today will be a code heavy session. today will be a session where there will be so many things which you might encounter for the first time. Please note down all your questions. I will have specific dedicated questions round, question solving, doubt solving round between and after the session. आज हम काफ़ी सारा कोड लिखने वाले हैं. उस कोड में बहुत सारी ऐसी चीज़ें हो सकती हैं जो शायद आप पहली बार देखें. आपके क्वेश्चंस डेफिनेटली आएंगे. मैं सबको आंसर करने की कोशिश करूंगा. अपने क्वेश्चंस लिख लीजिएगा. हम डाउट सॉल्विंग सेशंस रखेंगे इन बिटवीन एज वेल एज इन दी एंड. आप अपने सारे डाउट्स तब पूछ सकते हैं. राइट. लेट मी स्टार्ट ऑफ by creating the index.js again. Also, we have config, we have model, we don't have controllers, and we don't have routes, folders, or directories if you are in Linux. Let's create those. Controllers and routes. Acha, there is no compulsion to name these controllers, configs, model, route. You can name them whatever you want. It is just the convention. ये बस एक प्रथा चली आ रही है. You can name them whatever you want. Hello Rishi, how are you? Also, if you remember, we installed 3 packages on day 1. Let me zoom a little. We installed .env, we installed Express, we installed Mongoose. Yes, we will be using all 3 today, as well as a few other packages too. We have already installed Express. Let's import it. Let's have a shorter name for Express. I'm also good, Rishi. Thank you. We need port. If you guys remember, we had the port stored in env. So we can do process.env. The variable name. However, in order to use this, we have to import another package, which was .env config. Now we can start our server. All we need to do is this. A message which will tell us that the server has already started. Let's see if the server works. As you can already see, the server started at port 5000 message. That means our server is up and running. Good to go. We also have the database all connected. We just have to call this function. So before starting the server, let me connect to the database. How can we do that? By simply calling this function, nothing else. And in this function, we also have a console that will tell us that we have actually connected to the DB or not. If you open up the terminal, oh, connect DB is not defined. Oh, okay, we forgot to import it, I believe. Okay, let me do it manually only. Import connect to DB from. Okay, so we are in index.js. We have to go in config and db.js. In Node, the extensions are mandatory. In React, you can skip them as well. In Node, you have to have the extensions. Now you can see we are connected to the server as well as we are connected to the database. Yay, good to go. All right, now what? We will have API routes. Oh, if you remember what exactly a URL shortener is, we saw 1 or 2 examples on day 1. Let me show them to you again. Let me share my browser too. And browser should be visible. Let's search for URL shortener. You will see this. You will see this. The reason we are seeing these websites, hi, boss, X boss. Nice name. If you care to share your actual name, that will be great. Boss, X boss. The reason I'm showing you this application is to make you understand, to help you understand how many routes do we need. We need two routes. That is, our API should interact with the user in two ways. One, when the user will put a full URL, a long URL, and click on a button, we should have a route for that to catch the long URL. Right? We should have a post API route for that. And we should also have a route to tell the user, to give the user, to present to the user the short URL, a get API route to present something like this to the user. So we need two API routes. I hope I'm clear on this thing. If you still have any doubts, once I'll start coding, those will be cleared as well. Let's come back to the VS Code and let's see what we can do. Okay, let's see what we have in terms of the structure. So we already have the index.js, we already have the env, we already have the db.js inside config. We don't have anything in controllers, we don't have anything in routes and models, right? The structure would be something like this. We will have one file in controller, one in model, and one in routes. Again, it's not a compulsion, but what I'm doing is I'm naming all the files the same. That is, inside models, I will have url.js. It's your choice whether to keep it capitalized or not. This will host my model. Very similarly, I will have a route that will also be url.js, and I will have a controller that will also be url.js. Again, it's not a compulsion to name the three files the same. It's your choice. So what are we doing? Since we have already connected with the database, that part is done. Now, we need to have few routes, we need to have models, and we need to have some controllers. Okay. So what will happen when the user writes or copy pastes a long URL in an input box? That URL will be fed to our system, and we will store that URL, the long URL, along with a short code into our database. This is what will happen when the user writes a long URL and submits a button on the front end. I said that we will store those in the database. Now, because our database is MongoDB, in order to communicate with the database, in order to do anything with the that is associated with the database, whether to store something, whether to fetch something from the database, we first need a model. Inside that model, we need a schema. We have this file. In this file, I'll create two things, a model and a schema. This is my model. It takes two arguments, a name for the model and a schema. So the name can be absolutely anything. Let me name it URL only. And it needs a schema name. So where do I get that schema name from? I'll have to create that. So let me create a URL schema. You might be wondering, what is a schema? Well, it's a fancy name for structure. Schema is the structure in which the data will be stored in your database. This is the very difference between a relational and a non-relational database, that is a MySQL or a PostgreSQL and MongoDB. In MySQL, you have a fixed schema, that is rows and columns. That is why we never have to worry about the schema in relational databases, that is in SQL or Postgres. In MongoDB, we have to tell the database what will be the structure of the data that we will be storing. That is what is known as schema. Let me create the schema. You will understand it in an instance. So I've created a variable URL schema. That is a new instance of a predefined class called schema. Let's take a very short 1 minute break, guys. So we have created a new instance, a new reference of the class schema. We have named it URL schema. This will take an object. Now, what exactly a schema is, you will get to know in just 1 second. So what I have written here, what I'm saying here, what I'm telling MongoDB here is that expect a key value. The key would be name original URL. It will be of type string, and it will be mandatory whenever the user sends a request. That is, it will be required. If it is not there, throw an error. So this is the name. You can type in whatever you want. Just remember the rules of naming a JavaScript variable. You cannot have spaces. You cannot have any other special chars other than the underscore. Type. The data types that you have in JavaScript, those work here. That is, you can have numbers, strings, booleans, arrays, objects, maps, all those things work. What we are having a type of string. That is the original URL. When the user will provide one, it will be of type string, and yes, it will be mandatory. The original URL is the long URL that the user types or pastes in. Along with the original URL, we will have a short ID or a short URL, the type of which will also be a string, and that will also be required. So required true. Along with type and required, in this case, we have also typing in this case a unique true. Now, as the name suggests, unique. No two short IDs or short URLs. That is, the short URLs for any two user request will never be the same. Generally, the your usernames, your email IDs, your phone numbers, those are unique. In our case, the short ID or the short URL, that will be unique. If you want, we can also have that when the user created this short URL. So in that case, you can have a date, a created at date. Its type will be nothing but a date. Now, of course, the user wants convenience. That is, when the user will input the long URL, they will only input the long URL in the front end. In the front end, there will not be a separate text box for the date. We will have the date fetched from the system automatically. How we can do that? We can very simply do that like this. Date dot now. If you are not sure what this gives you, you can read here or you can search for date dot now on the internet. I'm MDN wherever you want it. This is what the schema looks like. This is what a schema is. What we have told MongoDB and our Express server is that whenever there will be some data to be stored, it will be in this. It will be of this type. It will be of this fashion. It will have a key by this name, a key by this name, and a key by this name. And the properties would be like these. So this is what a schema is. Let's say if I was storing some phone numbers, I would have created another key value pair phone, type number, required, unique for emails, for all sorts of things. So this is what a schema looks like. This is the schema. This schema is what will go as the second argument to this model URL schema. When we actually would want to save something, to store something in the database, or to fetch something from the database, we will not be communicating directly with this URL schema. What we will be communicating with will be the model. That is why this model has to be exported from here. So this is our complete url.js, the model. Okay, let's have a very quick doubt session. If someone has any questions still here, feel free to ask. And feel free to ask absolutely anything. All right, I think it's time to move forward, I believe. So this is our model. Let's go back to our index.js. in the API routes. We have to now tell our server when to use this model and this schema, that is app.use. So whenever there is a request, any type of request, get, post, push, whatever, whenever there is a request to, let's say, API URL, this is the endpoint, and it can be whatever you want it to be. Whenever there is a request to localhost 5000 slash API slash URL, go to this thing. That is what we are saying. Let's say a URL router. We don't, however, have this URL router right now. We created a routes and a url.js. Let's go to that url.js. This is that URL router that we just wrote in the index.js. Let's export it and then let's import that back in the index. However, it is nothing but an empty object right now. This URL router has nothing but the empty object, nothing. So whenever there is a request, it can be a get, a post, put, whatever. Whenever the user puts in the long URL and hits the button, that excuse me, that will be a post request. So whenever there is a post request on localhost 5000 slash API slash URL slash, let's say, shorten. Again, this is the endpoint, which can be absolutely anything. So whenever there is a post request on localhost 5000 API URL shorten, we are saying, we are telling our Express server, run this event handler, run this event listener. Which event listener? Well, we'll have to create one. Let's say generate short URL. Whenever there is a post request at this endpoint, execute this function. This is what we are saying. This function is not defined yet. It will be defined in the controller. Let's create an async function by the same name. And let's import it back in our route. Make sure to always have the extension, otherwise you will have an error. This is just, I'm following the MVC pattern which we discussed in the last class. I hope you remember, guys. If you not, feel free to ask any questions. This will have two parameters, the incoming request, the outgoing response. Now what we need, we actually need to have that long URL converted into a short URL, a short ID having 6 to 8 or 10 characters. How many characters? That we can decide. If you want a practical, let me show you practically what I mean by this. What we are doing is, we are doing something like this. That is, whenever the user types in any URL in here and hits this button, what will happen behind the scene? That is what we are coding right now. That is, whenever someone clicks this button, they will be sending out a post request to localhost 5000 API URL shorten. So what will happen after that? That is what we are coding. I hope it makes sense. Let's go back. to the VS Code. Is my screen not visible, guys? Can anyone confirm if it is visible or not to you? Okay, that means it is visible. Fantastic, thank you. All right. The first thing that we need is the long URL that the user has typed in. Of course, that will be sent in the body, in the request body. So what we need is whatever the user has sent in the request body. Let's have that in original URL. Now, where does this name come from? If you remember our model, why I am typing original URL only? Why I haven't typed anything else? That is because in our model, I typed in the name or the key as original URL. That is why the name original URL here. That is whenever we'll create front end or we'll test this API from the front end, we will pass in the name original URL and then associate the long URL with that. Also, although we mentioned that it is required, if someone clicks the button and without typing in the URL, in that case, we don't have to do much. We just have to return and tell the user that this is a problem. How we can do that? Well, if we don't have a truthy value in the original URL, we can simply return back with the response that will have a status of 400. 400 status means that there is an error from the client side. That is, there is an error from the user. We will have to tell them in plain English what the user is. So for that, we can do a message and we can say long URL is required. Please pass in that parameter. Otherwise, it won't work. However, if we have the long URL, well, let's shorten it. Now, we have to shorten it. For any long URL, we need a short ID. That short ID might look something like, let's say, this. Just an example. Now, how do we create this short ID that will contain random numbers, alphabets, or special characters? There are plenty of ways to create a random short ID, a hash, a hex value, whatever you want to call it. There are built-in methods, there are third-party libraries as well. If you want to go to the plain old route, you can also use the plain JavaScript's math.random. Yes, you can use that as well. If you know about it, fantastic. If you don't, just do a quick Google search. You can use math.random. You can use third-party variables. Now there are many third-party variables, third-party libraries available. There is UUID, there is NanoID, there is Argon. You can create your own library or middleware for this as well. What I'm going to use is NanoID. For no specific reason, I use NanoID the most. That is why I'm picking NanoID. You can use Argon, you can use UUID, you can use, if you want, bcrypt or whatever. The choice is yours. We have to first install NanoID. However, we don't have that. Let's open up the terminal. Let's stop our node server. npm I nanoid. Okay, before installing, let's go to the browser and let's see what it is. Let me share my browser as well. Let me know if it is not visible. When you'll do a quick Google search for the term nano ID, the first link that you will lead to is this npm.js nano ID. What is nano ID? A tiny, secure, URL friendly, unique string ID generator. It's a string ID generator that generates unique, tiny. The main reason for picking nano ID is it creates a tiny IDs. An example of which is something like this. It will create something like this for us. Whenever we'll put the long URL, it will give us something like this. Of course, you can control the length of it. As you can see, it is about 20 characters. I'm not counting it, just saying by assumption, it's 20 characters. If you want it for 10 characters, for 8, for 12 characters, of course, you can do that. If you want the full documentation, that is also available here on NanoID's GitHub page, which looks something like this. The way to install, as it is written here, is npm i nanoid. Let me share my browser again. Sorry, not browser, my VS Code. Let me know when it's visible. And let's do npm i nanoid. Done. If you want to confirm, go to package.json, where you see nanoid. Let's start the server again. Nodemon index.js. You can write node index.js as well. No errors. Server started, connected to DB. Fantastic. Let's go back to our controller. Now, we need a short ID for whatever long URL the user types in. Again, the name short ID is coming from here, from the model. We have imported nano ID and we are now using it. Generate secure URL friendly unique ID. By default, the ID will have 21 symbols. Okay, so if you just on the browser, we saw the unique ID that was of 21 characters, not 20. But of course, the default size is 21. If you want any other size, you can have it as the first argument. That is, let's say I do not want the size of the ID to be 21 characters. I want it to be, let's say, 10 characters. Because, of course, the whole idea of this application is to have a short URL. So let's say 10. Well, that's it. We have a short ID at our hands. Yes, we do have a short ID, but now we need to store it in the database as well. Now, this is where the model will kick in. I forgot in the beginning, but let's do it now. Let's have some sort of exception handling. That is, if our code goes wrong, let's have some default way of catching those errors. This is what is known as exception handling. Something like this. That is, what I have done is, if there is any problem in these 4 to 5 or 7 lines, stop the execution right there and execute the catch block. This is what I have written. This is what exception handling, this is what try and catch is all about. If there is any problem in the try block, execution stops then and there, and the catch is automatically executed. If you want the user to see the actual error, well, we can do that as well. Let's say error string. If you want the user to see the actual error, why we are getting status as 500? 500 means error from the server side. Just like 400 was error from the user side, 500 is error from the server's side. If you want the user to see the actual error message, you can have error dot message. Dot message. The message property from the error will have the sorry guys. The message property will have the actual error what has happened on the server. Why you are not seeing the short URL? Well, that is if there is any problem in try. If there is not, well, let's move ahead and save it. Save the long URL as well as the short ID in the database. This is where the model thing comes in. If you remember, we created our model by the name URL model, right? I have imported that URL model from url.js. Extension is mandatory. And what I'm doing is the original URL from the request body, from the user, and the short ID that we just created. I'm passing those in an object. Let's call it data to save. You can call it whatever you want. What I have done on line 13 is this. I created an object which had the original URL and the short ID. And I passed it to URL model. Now, what will URL model do? It will pass this object through the schema. It will check for the names, for the types. If everything is good, if everything is according to the schema, then we will have an object, or in MongoDB terms, that object is known as a document. We will have a document that is ready to be stored in the database. A document that is ready to be stored in the database. If not, if there is some problem, let's say if I by mistake do not have the original URL, or if I, let's say, have a typo, have a typing mistake, in that case the try will be halted, the execution of try will be stopped, and catch will be automatically executed. But if everything goes well, we will have a document in data to save, and all we then need to do is data to save. That is our variable name. You can name it whatever you want. Dot. Now Mongoose has a function that is called save. What it does, as the name is, it saves the document in the database. Which document? This document. Well, it returns a promise. That is why we need to have a await in here. So we will try and save that document in the database, in the MongoDB database. We will wait for the promise to be fulfilled. When it does, we will send back a response. If you want to send a status, we can send a status of 201. 201 stands for when you create a new data in the database. So status 201, and the message will be, well, you can say URL stored, something like this. The message can be absolutely anything. But actually, the user would like to see the short URL created, right? The URL stored message is good, fantastic, no problem with that. But the user would actually want to see the short URL that we just created. We saw that on the DB as well, on the browser as well. So instead of the message, because we can work with the status 201, instead of the message, let's actually send the short URL that was created, the short ID that we created. So we'll send the actual short ID Or let's do one thing. Let's also do one thing. Once again, this might be something that you haven't encountered before. It's all right. So what I'm doing is this. So this is the HTTP, what we have, the colon, yes, colon forward slash. Then we need the domain name, localhost, or whatever it is. So request dot, we need to get that host, no? I think we can get that by get. Yes, get, and, sorry, host. I think we can do this. So we have local HTTP colon forward slash localhost slash and the short ID. Yes, and the short ID. So this is what I am sending. Now, what exactly I am sending with this is, let me show you through a visualization. So what we are sending back an object that will have a key, short URL. That short URL will first have the protocol. Now, what exactly is the protocol? The HTTP or the HTTPS you have in the beginning of the URLs. Because we are working on localhost and localhost runs on HTTP, so protocol will be HTTP. Then you have the colon and 2 forward slashes that will be printed as it is. Request.get host. Request.get host will give you whatever your host name is. In our case, it is localhost colon 5000. Request get host will give you this localhost 5000. If you know about deployment, if you know how to deploy your code on servers, on clouds, request.get host there will give you the deployed link. Let's say you deploy it on AWS, on Azure, so it will have that particular link. Then a slash and the short ID. Let's assume that we created a short ID which looks something like this. Because we had 10 characters, so it looks something like this. So this is what we will be sending back to the user after we have created and stored the long and short URL in the database. The browser, the user will on the front end, if it's a HTML front end or React or any front end, the front end will then simply show this to the user. Screen not visible? Okay. Okay, guys, my screen is not visible. Can anyone tell me if my screen is visible or not? Okay. सर नैनो आईडी क्या है और इसको क्यों यूज करते हैं? ओके, सो रोहित कुमावत, नैनो आईडी एक पैकेज है, एक लाइब्रेरी है जो आपको कुछ रैंडम कैरेक्टर्स, अल्फाबेट्स और नंबर्स और स्पेशल कैरेक्टर्स को मिला के एक ऐसा रैंडम स्ट्रिंग देती है. बस यही सिंपली काम है नैनो आईडी का. अल्फाबेट्स, नंबर्स, स्पेशल कैरेक्टर्स का मिक्स करके आपको कुछ ऐसा पकड़ा देती है. कितनी लेंथ का, वो लेंथ आप स्पेसिफाई कर सकते हैं. जैसे हमने यहाँ स्पेसिफाई किया है 10, सो वी विल हैव 10 कैरेक्टर्स, समथिंग लाइक दिस. दैट इज व्हाट नैनो आईडी डज. सर्विस फोल्डर क्यों नहीं यूज किया? राइट नाउ वी डोंट नीड अ सर्विस फोल्डर. सॉरी, आई कैनॉट प्रोनाउंस योर नेम. सर्विस फोल्डर मैं तब यूज करता जब मैं कोई बिल्ट इन सर्विस या फिर कोई कस्टम सर्विस यूज कर रहा होता. नैनो आईडी एक थर्ड पार्टी सर्विस है. इस फंक्शन जनरेट शॉर्ट यूआरएल में जो थर्ड पार्टी सर्विस है उससे सिर्फ एक ये लाइन आई है. बाकी की लाइंस तो स्टैंडर्ड एक्सप्रेस सर्वर है, राइट? This is standard Express server stuff. So I didn't think कि service folder use करना यहाँ पे mandatory था. If you still want, yes, you can create a folder called service. You can keep this generate short URL function in that folder, in a file in that folder. I didn't think it was necessary, so not created it. That is it. If you want, you can create a folder, you can create a file, you can keep this function inside that services. I hope I answer your question. If you can tell me in the chats, that will be fantastic. Time to test this. Not for URL, but for other table. I'm sorry, which other table? And where are we using tables here? Please elaborate on your question. What we can now do is we can now test this thing. Because we do not have the front end, of course, we can test it with Postman, right? Let's fire up Postman. I think it's not shared, so let me share it as well. Let me know when my Postman is visible to you guys. If anyone can tell me if Postman is visible or not. No? Okay. Okay, I believe there is some lag. It will be visible, don't worry. Okay, got it. It should be visible any moment. I think it's visible now. Okay, there is a significant lag. Okay, perfect. So we created a rice. Okay, there's a lag. Don't worry. Okay, thank you, Rohan. Akshat, thank you, Quick Grow. So we created a route, a post route, right? So let me change it to post. HTTP localhost 5000. What we created was API/API/URL/shorten. I think we created this. Let me confirm. Yes. Because this is a post route, it needs something in the body. So let's click on body raw. Let's send JSON. By JSON. Okay, I think I forgot something. Yes, yes, yes. Let me again. Okay, let me share everything now. This will be better actually. In Postman, I'm sending a JSON. But my server, however, is not ready yet to process JSON. In that case, what we do? Well, we can do this. We can write app.use express JSON. That's it. Now our server will be able to have to process, to parse request with JSON bodies, just like the one we are about to send with Postman right now. Also, Also, there was a slight mistake with the model. The short ID, I have made it required true. Short ID is something that the user will not pass, that will be created by the server. Having it as required true will mean that the user needs to send it. The user will not send short ID. The short ID will be sent by the server, in fact, back to the user. So let me remove the required true, this thing, from the short ID. Now we are good. Okay. Let's go back to Postman. Let's try and send a post request to localhost 5000 API URL shorten. In that, let's send original URL. Yes, the name has to be original URL. Let's upgrade.com. Let's have a bigger URL. Na? I think this will work. Okay. So let's have a bigger URL, which is something like this. And let's hope to get a short URL back in the response. Yay! Can you guys see the result in the Postman? Give me a yes or no in the chat. Yay! Thank you, Rohan. Exciting it was, right? And easy too. Okay, guys, was it exciting and easy? Yes or yes? Okay, fantastic. Was it exciting? Was it easy? Thank you, Akshat. Okay. Oh, hi, Diane. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Diane. Did I pronounce your name right? Diane or Diane? If I butchered it, I'm extremely sorry for that. Thank you, Quick Grow. Because we now have the short URL. Let's also test it with another URL. Let's test it thoroughly, na? So let's test it with some other URL. Okay. Okay, let's have any posts URL from LinkedIn. Okay, let's take this URL. Let's head back to Postman. Let's send another post request. This time the original URL would be this. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, thank you, Deanne. And yes, we have also tested that yes, the first one was not a fluke. Our code is working correct. However, we are getting this in the Postman. We actually have to see this in the database too, right? Let's head back to mongodb.com. Now you can do this with MongoDB Compass as well. You can do this with MongoDB Compass too. You need to log into your mongodb.com and go to clusters. Inside clusters, if we click on collections, it's working. Fantastic. So you can see the LURL shortener. If you don't remember where this name came from, let me show you a back. When we created the ENV, this is where we typed in the database's name. That is why you are seeing this name. Inside the database, you can see a name in a name URLs. Now that is a collection name. This URLs is a collection. Now where did this name come from? If we go back to the code in the model, because I typed in the name URL, the collection that is created on MongoDB is actually the plural of the model name. Because I typed in URL, the collection got created by the name URLs. Fascinating, isn't it? So our database name was this. This is our collection. And inside the collection, you can see two documents. This is a document and this is a document. You can see the original URL. You can see the short ID. You can also see the created at. Underscore ID and underscore V or version. These are two default key value pairs that MongoDB always uh, inputs with all the documents. There is no need to delete or modify them as of now. As a matter of fact, we use underscore ID for various operations for updations and deletions. Any questions so far? Let's open up a very quick doubt session, doubt solving session. No doubts. Oh, that is great. Okay, if no one has any doubts, let's take a quick 60 seconds break. Then we'll resume and we'll create another route in here. Let's take a quick break, guys. All right, guys, we are back. My screen should be visible. So we have successfully created and tested that yes, we are creating short URLs for the longer URLs. There is no point of a short URL if the user cannot click on it and then go to the actual one, to the long URL. Like if I take this URL, if I take a bigger URL, a long URL, put it in my browser, of course, it will take me to the desired web page. However, I cannot say the same for the short URL. So we need to have another route, that is when the user clicks on the short URL, we need to redirect to the actual URL, to the bigger URL. We don't use another app use. Simply in the URL router, we had a post call. We can now have a get call. The name was short ID. Yes, it was short ID. So it was generate short URL. Let's say redirect to URL. So what we are saying with this line is whenever someone actually clicks on the short URL, that is whenever someone clicks on http localhost 5000 / the short ID, this is the function, this is the listener that will be executed. Now, you might be wondering, what is this syntax? What is this colon short ID? If some of you are familiar with either React or Angular, you know that this colon is a wildcard. What we are actually saying with this is whenever someone clicks on a link which says / that is localhost 5000 and has anything after that, this colon means basically anything after localhost 5000. Take that anything, store that in the short ID, and then go to this function. Of course, this function has to be created in the controller. Let me go to the controller. Let me create another function, an async function. So the name was this. This will also have two things, the request and the response. The first thing is whenever someone clicks on this function is called. First, we will fetch, we will extract the short ID from the URL. The easiest way to do that is the name short ID. Why I'm writing short ID here is because the model has the name short ID, right? Now you have seen request.body. However, in this case, I'm writing request.params. Now the difference between request body and request params. Request.body is something that generally comes from a form. Request.params, however, is something that is fetched from the URL. If your URL is something like this, http localhost 5000 / something like this, the request.params in this will give me this thing. And that is exactly what I want. This is my short ID, right? There is another thing called request.query. Now I'll leave that to you, that what is the difference between request params and request query. You have to figure that out on your own. In this case, I'm using request params. However, if we do not have the short ID, like this thing, if we do not have the short ID, if the URL does not contains the short ID, that is a problem for us. That is an error. So if there is no short ID, we can simply say a 400 and we can tell the user that the short ID is required. You cannot short ID is required. You cannot work without it. Simple. That is if we don't have that. If we do, well, that is good. If the URL does not have the short ID, do this. If the URL has the short ID, we need to, because we need to go to the actual URL, to the original URL. Na? We need to first find the original URL associated with that short ID. And we will do that, of course, in the database. This is an asynchronous operation. Well, all the mongoose operations, all the mongoose functions almost are asynchronous. So before all the mongoose functions, you will have await. You will find the word await. Because we are dealing with database model, just like when we were saving something, we had model. When we are fetching something, we will have the model only. URL model dot. There is a function called find, and there are variants of find. There is find by ID, ID delete, ID update, find one, this and that and that. Now, because if you remember in the model, we had that the short ID will be unique. That is, no two long URLs will have the same short ID. I can use find one. That is, if this short ID is in the database, I will be sure that it will only be present once. अगर होगी तो सिर्फ एक बार होगी, otherwise नहीं होगी. That is what I'm saying by find one. Find the document that has the short ID. I think ठीक है. Find one, does it require a module? Yes, it does. Okay, so I think it should work. Find the document which has the short ID which we have passed in the URL. Now there can be two things. Either we can have the document, or we do not find it. In case we do not find the URL, if there is the URL, fantastic. If we do not find it, that means we have to send a 404. .404, as you might already know, means a not found. We will simply say no URL found with this ID. If we, however, do find the URL, if we do find the document, we need to send the user, we need to redirect the user onto the original URL. Now that can be very easily done with something response dot redirect. Redirect, as the name suggests, will take you to some other URL, and in this case what we can write is URL dot original URL. Where does name come from? Original URL, of course, from the model. Well, that is it. Oh no, that is not it. We forgot the try and catch, the error handling, exception handling. So let me put a try here. This try will end here. If there is any problem in the try, the catch, it will be catched in the catch block, and we will send a response with the status of 500. That is, there is something wrong with the server. We'll send a message saying, let me copy the message only. There is, let me copy this whole thing. Let me copy this object. and let me paste it. The easiest thing to do, copy and paste, right? I think we are done. Time to test this again with the help of Postman. If time permits, we'll try to have a very basic front end as well. But let's first test it with Postman. I don't think that is shared. Let me share it. Let me know when you once again see my screen. It should be visible, I believe. Let's go to Postman. Now we know that this LinkedIn news article has a short URL of something like this. Let me copy this. We can click it from here only, but let me copy this. Let me go to the browser. Let me paste it here. So what this will do, because we are just pasting something in the browser, that is, we want something from our server, it's a GET request. This request will trigger a GET call to localhost 5000 slash short ID. It should, however, take us to the LinkedIn article if everything works fine. Let's see. Oh, it is giving us a cannot get. Okay. Well, it happens. So there is no error on our part. Okay. We have to do some debugging. Oh, okay, okay. My bad, my bad, my bad. We only have this one app.use. That means all our requests should start after localhost 5000 should start with API URL. My point is this. We cannot have, we right now cannot have localhost 5000 slash the short ID. What we should have right now, what we should have is something like this. The URL should say localhost 5000 API URL and the short ID. However, well, the whole point of this exercise was to create a shorter version of the URL. No need for this API URL. Now, this is, I think, suffice. This is actually a short URL, isn't it? What I'm doing here is actually now we have a slight problem. If I use this slash and this, तब तो हमें all the requests will then go to this. That won't help. If I do a slash, every request will go to this, then this will be rendered useless. Okay, slight structural mistake. हमने जो structure बनाया उसमें slight mistake कर दिया हमने. Let's see what we can do. It's all right. Everything is still fine. Everything can be sorted. Okay. We can either do we can append API slash URL to our short URLs. I don't want to do that. What we can do then in that case, don't need DNV. We have to, violate the MVC a little in this case. we can still work. What we can still work with is we can, but yes, we have to violate the MVC a little in this case. The short ID. Now what we can do is, yes, this redirect to URL. We can write it here, and we have to import the redirect to URL from here to here. We don't need the generate short URL. Okay. We don't then need this thing, and we don't need this thing. So what we are now doing is this. Yes, we are somehow violating the MVC. That is fine. It is not a big scale project. That is absolutely fine. So what we are doing is, that is, if any requests comes to the endpoint API URL, then a router will be invoked. Then we'll invoke this router, and the router will take it from there. However, if we have a get request, now this app.use, it could be a get, a post, a put, patch, anything. If we have a get request, and that get request points to slash, that is localhost 5000 in the URL, in that case, we are directly calling a controller function from the index only. That index, that controller function, that controller function will then do the same thing. It will extract the ID from the URL. If it does not have the ID, it will send a 400. It will try to find the document in the database. If the document is not found, then a 404. If it is found, then we'll redirect the user to that URL. We haven't changed the logic. We just have changed the place where the logic is written. This was previously written in the router. I'm now writing it in the index.js. Why I'm doing this? If I do not do this, we have to change the entire structure of our code. That will be too much of a task. This is easier, quicker, simpler. I hope it is making sense, guys. Let us now see what happens. So this was the URL. Let me copy this again. It was already copied anyway. My browser is visible. Yes, it is, I believe. Okay, what is happening? Okay, module not found. Which module did not found? Controllers URL. Okay. Oh, the only thing is the path is wrong. This symbol .. it simply means to go back one directory, to go back from the present working directory, because previously we were in the model. In there, it made sense. We are now in index. We just have to go directly into the controllers folder from here. We don't need this. We just need this. As you can now see, everything is working well. At last, if we go back to the browser, hit enter, find one. Okay, find one must be an object. So it is saying to me, the find one must have an object. All right, let's go back. It's good that we are getting so many errors. We are getting to know how MongoDB works, how Mongoose works, how the server works. It is absolutely fine if you get errors. The only error that we are getting is this one. The find one always expects an object. Now you know object has key and value. Short ID. This short ID is the name given in our model, because we are extracting the ID from the URL and storing it again in a variable by the same name. So we will have something like this. That's it. There is no error, as you can see in the console. Let's again go back to the URL browser. Finally, it should work. Let's hope so. And finally, it is good to go. Let's check the other URL too. Let's actually go to the database. Let's have the short URL from there. So this is the ID for the short URL. Localhost 5000 slash the new short ID. If I hit enter, it should take me to a Google Doc page. It should take me to Google Docs. Ta-da! This is how a basic basic, but yes, with all proper functionalities, a basic URL shortener works. I'll open the stage to any questions, any doubts, anything that you want to ask or tell. Then I'll suggest what improvements you can do to make this URL shortener even more practical. Anything that you want to ask or say, now will be the time. Any question, guys? Anything? No? Yes, please, Mr. Olaf. Mr. Olaf, go ahead with your question, please. What's your opinion about vibe coding? You should do vibe coding. There's absolutely no problem with vibe coding. The only thing is you should know what the AI agent is coding. If you are vibe coding and you have absolutely no idea what it is producing, sooner or later, Mohit, you will be in for a big trouble. Point is, use AI agents, chat GPT, to automate your work, to produce output quicker. Do not use AI agent, chat GPT, do not vibe code something which you cannot code without that AI agent. That will be my take on vibe coding. Thank you for asking that question. Mr. Olaf, still waiting for your question. I guess no questions from Mr. Olaf. Anything anyone wants to say? Okay, just a general opinion, guys. How was these two sessions? URL shortener. Did you find it interesting? Did you find it informative? Yes or no? How do I start learning Node.js? I am making a lot of mistakes and can't understand where to begin. Let me know when my browser is visible. Mr. Olaf, you can start learning Node.js by going to the Node.js's official website, which is nodejs.org. and then going to learn. This is a very good platform to learn Node.js. If you get the hang of it, you can simply move to docs, search for what any specific topic that you are searching for, and then go ahead with it. Can go ahead with it. Combine this with chat GPT or any AI. Don't only use AI. Coming back to the question that Mohit also asked, well, don't vibe code just for the sake of it or just for it is in trend. It is in trend. Use AI wisely. That will be, you will be 10 times the developer you currently think you are. Very informative, eased me into a new concept smoothly. Thank you, Zina. Actually, I got to know how these things work as a beginner by these 2 days. Oh, thank you, Mohit. The sessions are very interesting. Calm teaching style makes it easy to follow along. Thank you, Deanne. Got it. Thank you, Mr. Olaf. Just to continue on Mr. Olaf's question. If you guys remember, we used nano ID for this, for creating the short ID. Well, you can also use a class called crypto in Node.js. If you want to learn about crypto, you can come to Node.js docs and learn about crypto. Crypto also gives you cryptographically secure random hashes. I'm used to communicate to Firebase, something new. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, sir. You told me so much. Thank you so much, Rashid, for joining. Well, it is not over yet. Please don't leave as such. We still have to tackle a simple edge case. What if I think my Postman is in shared. Let me share my screen again. Let me share my code. So whenever a user is generating a short URL, what we are doing is we are taking the original URL from the body as is. Right? What if the URL that the user has typed is not actually a valid URL? What if the user types in any gibberish? And right now we are storing that as is in our database. So we need to have some sort of checks, don't we? That is, whenever we are storing something in the database under original URL, it should be a valid URL. Someone also said about having a service folder. Well, let's create a service folder. If you want it in utils, you can have this in utils as well. Let me create it inside service. So let me have a URL validation service. That is urlvalidation.js. Let me write in a function is valid URL. This function will take in, of course, the URL that the user has typed in. It will check whether it's a valid URL, and it will return a boolean, a yes or no, a true or false, depending on what it is. All right. Return false only. In this case, though, nothing fancy. Return false. Oops, sorry, my bad. How to test if a URL is a valid URL or not? JavaScript makes it very easy. JavaScript has a built-in interface called URL. You just pass whatever the user has given, whatever the user has entered into the URL interface. if the URL that what the user has typed is a valid URL, this will not throw any error. In that case, you can simply pass back true. You can simply return a true. If this thing throws an error, the catch will automatically be executed and a false will be returned. This is a very, very, very simple URL validation function. How to use this, however? How to use this service? Let's go back to the controller. This is a service. Let's go back to the controller in our generate short URL function. In our generate short URL function, we checked whether the URL, whether the user has typed in any URL. Fine. After this, let's have one more test. Whether, what is the name of the service? Sorry, is valid URL. Whether the URL or the original URL that the user has typed, if it is a valid URL or not. Okay, it's not imported automatically. Let's import it manually. We did not export it. That is why it is not showing up. Okay, I did not export it. Let me export this. Export default is valid URL. There you go. Let's head back. After checking whether there is a URL, let's check whether that URL is a valid URL or not. Is valid URL. Which URL that the URL which the user has passed. If the URL is valid, then it is good. However, if the URL is not valid, if we are getting a false, in that case, we will again send. We will again send a 400. And this time we will say the URL is not valid. Let's keep it simple. There you go. Now we have a hardened security in our URL shortener. Any question anyone would like to ask? Anything if you would like to say, guys? Now will be the time. As for this code, it will be shared in the all-in-one docs that you have, the link that you already have. It will be shared there only. What I would like you guys to do is take this code, try to deploy it on Vercel, Render, Azure, AWS, wherever you want, and see if it still works. It should. However, if it doesn't, tweak it according to that particular platform. You will have a working URL shortener. As for the teaching, that will be all from my side. Again, the stage is all yours, guys. Anything you would like to tell me, ask, say, feel free. Yes, guys, anything anyone would like to say, feel free. Nothing? All right. In that case, I think we are good to finish this one. I will meet you guys in another session on another topic of React, Node, or whatever. Until then, guys, it was a lovely interaction with all of you. I hope you guys also enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you for joining. Thank you for attending. I'll see you in the next class, in the next lecture. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's explore. Thank you, Zina. That will be all. Have a good day.